Number 2 overall pick. Is it still Alex Sarr or Risacher, or is there a wild card? And is it time to move on from Kyle Kuzma? Why we should or should not? We're going to talk about it next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Brandon Scott again, and I appreciate you guys making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 and bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So we got a special guest, my guy, Matt Modderno, representing Bleav in Wizards podcast and YouTube channel, and a writer and I lost my train of thought, and content creator over at Bullets Forever. So definitely check him out on both the platforms. And my guy, Domo, man, representing the Wizards of Gallery Place podcast. Both of the channels definitely must listen and must see, man. So definitely check them out. So how you guys doing tonight, man?
Doing great.
Doing good, man. Doing good. Happy to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Yes, sir. Anytime. So we're going to touch base on a couple of subjects tonight. We're going to talk about the number 2 overall pick, man. What you guys are looking at in the number 2 overall pick, and we might talk about number 26 also. And then we're going to look at Kyle Kuzma. You know, it's big news right now. He's on the trade block, so I'm going to get you guys' opinion on that. So let's get into it. Let's dig in, like the British say. We're going to look at the number 2 overall pick. Now, the Wizards this year, I got a number 2 overall pick, is a nice break from number 9 or 10, right? So looking at number 2, we're going to start with Matt. Who are you looking at number 2 and why?
This is like such a cop-out answer. I swear I mean this, though. Like, I'm cool with whatever they do with the guys that are in their range. I feel like that's being at peace with the front office and what they've done so far, but also just, I don't know, 2 through 10, if you told me any of them ended up the best guy of the group, I wouldn't bet against it. I think there's just so much kind of uncertainty, and it just really depends on what you're looking for. I think this is going to be like the ultimate, like, beauty is in the eye of the beholder draft. I know Domo and I are kind of split on a couple of these guys of just,
For sure.
you know, how big a swing you should take and things like that, or role you can fill right now. I think I'm a little more along the lines of guys I wouldn't want to see them take.
Yeah.
I don't really kind of love the Klingon idea at 2. Brandon, I know you're higher on him with that pick than I am, but it's just sort of like an overall upside thing. I think it's a little easier. You're seeing what Dallas did to have these sort of, rim protecting lob threat centers and just platoon solid guys to kind of put those minutes together, that I wouldn't put a number 2 pick to work on a guy like that. It's a little easier, I think, to find serviceable backup centers just because teams don't need as many of them and they come a little cheaper, whereas it's tougher to get wings and dynamic guards. So I would lean that kind of way. And on the dynamic guard side, I just want to see a guard on the Wizards that's over 6'3" for a change. So the Reed Shepherd, Rob Dillingham choice would be a little out for me. Pretty much fill in the blank with any of the other names kind of speculated in the top 10 right now, and I'm cool with that.
Okay, I like that. Okay, what are you thinking, Domo?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off Matt a little bit. It's not so much who I'm banging the table for, because there is no player like that in this draft, really. But it's more so who I don't want. I just keep going back to, with this new staff, Dawkins, he always talks about positional size. So I'm with whoever fits that for them. Positional size, somebody that's over 6'3", 6'4", that can kind of play up and down the lineup. Now I have my preferences of who I think fits that best. But as far as just what they decide to do with the pick, as long as it fits in that positional size criteria for me, I'll be fine with it.
Yeah, I'm with you guys, man. I think that we find ourselves in a really precarious place, right? Like, we have options, which wasn't always the case in DC, man. And I like Klingon. Yeah, I do like Klingon because the intangibles really scream to me, man. 7'3", 280 NBA body, but there's so many options. I mean, you could go Risacher, and I get that. I think the biggest thing with this draft, because a lot of draft experts are down in this draft, and yeah, there's not a lot of talent that's going to start right away. There's definitely a highly developmental draft, which with the Wizards, where we're going to year 2 of a rebuild, that's a really good draft, in my opinion, because you can get 2-3 guys where you can develop them right. And look, here's a couple things we don't really talk about as far as Wizards now. Now we have scouting and development in place. We have guys in the building who can scout, they can develop, they can work with these guys, they can get the most out of these guys. And, they don't have to feel the rush to really start these guys right away. A lot of people talk about Tommy Shepard and his picks. And I guess in hindsight, they weren't necessarily bad picks. It's just we needed to draft that time for immediate impact. And obviously with Denny, Corey Kispert, Johnny Davis, jury's still out. But, these guys had to be developed. So I wouldn't say bad picks, just the impact. We need an immediate impact. So I'm with you guys. What I'm looking for in this draft is hitting all needs as far as long-term and the immediate. I'm with you, Matt. I'm not really a Dillingham guy. I like his scoring potential, but his size, man. Castle to me has that size, and he wants to play point. And so we'll see. Castle's a guy that I'm really high on. Risacher, I love his, his potential as a 3-and-D guy. The defense is there now. You're gonna have to tinker with the defense a little bit. It's gonna take time for him to acclimate to the speed of the NBA. But Risacher is a very intriguing pick, man. Clingan, the body's there. Obviously, the shot's still a work in progress, but you definitely see the potential with that. So I think the biggest thing with this draft, and I agree with both of you, man, is that we have options. We can take our time, find the right guys for our system, develop them right, and go from there. So I think that, like I said, we have a lot of options. We did not have a lot of options in DC. So I'm with you guys, man. I think there's a lot of good picks there. Now, I don't know if you guys saw it. A lot of mock drafts have Nikola Topic. Now I'm gonna get your thoughts on Topic real quick. I'm not big on Topic, and it's not the knee injury, but the lack of a shot and the defense really kind of scream out at me. What you guys thinking?
You want to go, Dom?
Yeah. I like Topic, man. If he was the pick, I wouldn't be mad, because I think his ability to get 2 feet in the paint, which is something I've been kind of screaming about for like the last 4 or 5 years since Wall tore his Achilles. We haven't really had a dynamic guard that can consistently get 2 in the paint, which attracts the defense, draws guys in, and then you can kick out to open threes and shooters. He does that. He's probably the best in this draft at doing that. His passing feel and vision, pick and roll play, I love it. The question is the defense, like you said, and the shooting. But I look at his mechanics, his free throw numbers, his touch in the paint area. I think he can add a 3-ball, at least one that's good enough to be a starter in this league. The question is, can his offense be dynamic enough to offset what he's going to allow on the defensive end? But I trust Dawkins. His evaluation on that to me is going to determine, where Topic gets slotted. But like I said, if he was the pick, I wouldn't mind it, because we haven't had a point guard since Wall got hurt.
Yeah, same here. I don't think he'd be my top 1 or 2 option, but if they took it, I'd be like, cool, this makes sense. He's a guy with some upside, but he also fills a need where they could actually get him some real minutes. And I think especially if you're not going to have Tyus around, there's plenty of guard minutes to go around. So that would also be kind of the question. The thing with both him and Clingan, I would make sure that the physical is really thorough. These are both guys that have had lower body non-contact injuries in the last year, and just the Wizards can't afford the 1 year they're actually in the top 3 to have a guy that, is limited or something like that. So as long as that checks out, I think I feel pretty good about that. And like Domo talked about with the defense, at least if you're not going to be good on defense, be big, and it's a little harder for teams to hunt you, and you become a little more switchable, at least if you can hold up physically. And the thing with Topic, I think you're seeing this with Luka, the ability to sort of make these creative passes once a defense is overcommitted to you, I think is really huge. And he kind of holds people in place. And it's not just a highlight thing. When you watch videos of this guy, you watch actual game film, his team is missing a lot of bunnies because he's surprising them with some of the passes he's throwing. And I think he's going to look, even more dynamic offensively on an NBA team. And I think athleticism on offense in the NBA matters even less now than maybe it ever has, because you can't touch anybody. So as long as you've got one of pace, strength, or, explosiveness, 2 of the 3 is even better. I think you're in good shape. And looks like a guy who could put on weight and have a big enough frame. And he also plays with really good pace for a young guy. So I think he'll be able to get people on his hip, get into the lane, kind of collapse defenses. And that's the name of the game right now.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not that I don't like his size. I love the intangibles of him. He's a taller guy. And like you guys both said, we need a taller guard, man. These 6'2", 6'3" guys, and especially trying to turn combo guards into point guards. We
Howell Neto at small forward,
there you
that
go.
kind of thing.
Lordy.
Man, I'm trying to tell you, man. So, yeah, we definitely need some size at the guard position. So, you guys kind of mentioned this front office, and I'm with you guys. I'm a big fan of the big three in the front office of Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, and Travis Schlenk, man. And like I said, I was down there for the exit interviews with Michael Winger and Will Dawkins. And I'll say this, as opposed to Ernie Grunfeld and Tommy Shepard, I ain't trying to kick nobody while they're down, but these guys have a blueprint. And I sit there for about 20 minutes and I just talk ball with Michael Winger, man. And these guys, they know what they're talking about as far as scouting, development. They have a blueprint for this team. And, we all know, man, Wizards Twitter and the Wizards fan base, man. And being patient is a skill that not a lot of people have. And one thing that I noticed, this rebuild is going to take a little time. But in order to do it right, you want it to take time for them to actually scout, develop them right. And then when time comes to create that atmosphere where we can attract free agents or that one move that we can make to get in contention, we can do that. But so I'm a big fan of this front office. So, we also got a number 26 pick. Are you guys cool with the 26 or are you trying to trade back into the lottery? What do you think, Matt?
Brandon, can I ask you guys one question before we go to 26 real quick, just on sort of like the time frame? We were talking about this on our show a little bit about the potential move to Virginia and the timeline that comes with that, because if they were going to open arena and a new arena in 2026, they probably wouldn't want to be bad, going into the opening or 2028, maybe whatever it was. That puts a cap on how long you can actually rebuild. So I think the fact that we're hearing these guys talk about 3 through 4 through 5 years of getting this right and letting guys kind of naturally, grow into their ideal peak development timeframe and things like that, I think is like so huge and underrated, where like, as much as people did or didn't care about the games being in Virginia now, I think that's like the one really bright spot of it, of just, there's no rush to like sell out a new arena and things like that. Like you can just be organically on whatever time frame you need to be on. So I'm just curious to get your guys' kind of take on that.
I mean, I'll start real quick, man. I agree with, if they would have moved to Virginia, you definitely would try to get a competing team sooner than later, because obviously in the Commonwealth, man, the ticket prices go up and people are expecting a winning product a lot sooner than later. And so I agree with you that now they can take their time, but I don't think it's going to take as long as they say it's going to take. I think it's going to be around 2 to 3 years, maybe 4. And, that was actually a comment that Denny made down in practice facility, which is they believe in, the coach is, I'm not going to say it's Brian Keefe, even though I think we all know it's going to be Brian Keefe, and I think it should be, but they established the most important factor in the rebuild, which is culture. And these guys like playing here. They like playing together. There's no issues like the last couple of years where you got, people fighting in the tunnel and all that. You didn't have these issues this year. So I think that now they're going to be in DC. They can take their time. They can do it right. But look, if they progress faster than you think, why not take those swings in year 3? You know what I mean? Because who say we can't be a competitive team in 3 years? Who knows? So go ahead, Domo. My bad, man.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think that's definitely a factor with this whole, how they're building this team. This is not a microwave situation. They got it in the slow cooker, man. So you got to let it marinate. You got to get those pieces in here, build that culture up, and then you look up 2027. All of a sudden, you got a team competing, top 6 seed in the playoffs. So I'm with it. If you're gonna do a rebuild, man, do it. Like don't half it. So I'm with it, man. I'm all for it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think we all can agree on that, man. We ready for some, we were ready for that reset button. But like I said, I think that if they rebuild right, definitely we have to hit through the draft, obviously. But I think that DC can eventually be a city where people want to come. You know what I mean? I think that if you set the right environment, right culture, people talk, players talk. Obviously, if you look at people like Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, they have ties to other teams and other players. Players talk. And that was another thing that was sitting in the building, which is there is a lot of buzz with the Wizards right now, because now you have adults in the building as far as the front office, man. Like, these guys are ready to build this thing right. And it's trying to put everything in place as far as scouting, development, culture. So a lot of people there's a lot of buzz. I don't care what Stephen A. Smith says, about, the Wizards, man. I think that the Wizards are definitely
he's hating, man. He's hating.
Oh, man, he stays hating on the Wizards, man. Yeah. All the way back to John Wall and Bradley Beal's backcourt days, man. So, so we're going to get into the number 26 or whether we should trade back. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Kyle Kuzma. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So, it's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Had to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch today to Locked On Sports, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories with all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you canvas analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, so before we get in, my man Kuz, obviously we had the number 26. So I'm going to start with Domo. Are you cool with the 26? You think we can still find some really good talent 26, or do you want to see us kind of move back into the lottery? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm fine with 26 because I think there's so much uncertainty with this draft. There's no real consensus. So I think there's even more chance you could get, you could have a situation like with Cam Whitmore last year, a guy that is, touted highly, and he just drops, and you're sitting there at 26 and, you got an opportunity to kind of take a swing on him. But I would also love to, I think they have an opportunity to get another lottery pick, depending on which veteran they decide to move and how those things shake out, to get a lottery pick. And then you can take another swing. Or you could take, that pick plus 26, and maybe you could try to get into the more heralded 2025 draft class. So I think they got options, man. I think they need to explore everything. Because obviously this team, 15 wins, they need talent. So however way they could do that to get a higher pick, to get another pick next year, they need to do it.
Got you. What are you thinking, Matt?
As we just talked about that last convo about the rebuild and the time frame, one of the things I was thinking about with the Pacers is one of the things you hear from guys that have joined the Pacers in the last couple of years is the reason they wanted to play for the Pacers is Tyrese Halliburton being a fun guy to play with. And this might be a stupid factor to consider if I were drafting somebody, but eventually you're going to have to add free agents. And I think that's something guys really consider is who would be a fun set of guys to play with. And who are really the guys on the Wizards that other free agents are looking at and be like, yeah, that's the dude. So somebody like a Topic at 2, he might actually be a fun dude for people to play with because he can set them up. So if you don't get someone like that at 2, I would be considering guys like that at 26. Maybe you're not bringing your 26th pick in with the expectation that he's a franchise piece that you build around. But even like an Andrew Nembhard, that's like the hot name, in the league or Wizards Twitter right now, that's another dude that like other people are looking at as like, that would be a fun guy to play next to. So who are maybe some dudes you could snag at 26 that fit that mold a little bit? I think Jalen Tyson out of Cal is a fun guy to play with. He could be a guard in some situations or a wing. So you get a little positional versatility. He's kind of done both at the college level. I've got an AJ Mitchell is another name I think that's become a little more popular with Wizards fans too, out of UC Santa Barbara. Sort of a dynamic guard that could be a 1 or a 2. Got good touch, again, good enough feel to kind of like help other guys get good shots and stuff. So guys like that would be interesting. Still like Ryan Dunn out of UVA. He'll just come in, do the dirty work, defend for people. If you're establishing a defensive culture, he's somebody who would fit that. And I think guys would like playing with him too, because 1, he's going to finish their assists. It's one thing I think he does reasonably well. And 2, he'll do all the kind of gritty, dirty work stuff that maybe some of your stars don't want to do. So I would consider that as like a sneaky, factor when looking at guys. Like a Bub Carrington is one that everybody in the Wizards fan base likes. I would bet a large sum of money, as I'm sure you guys would, that he's long gone by then. Maybe somebody like a Deron Holmes might be another interesting name out of Dayton. I think he's probably somewhere in that ballpark too. So all a couple names I'd keep an eye on.
Yeah, great names, man. One guy I really like is Kaishan George, man. Keontae George's brother, man. Out the U, man. He's scrappy. He can definitely score, man. So
wait, are they actually related?
Yeah, that's his brother.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's oh wow.
Yeah, it's his brother, man. I didn't know until I got into the draft, man. But yeah,
Wow.
that's Keontae George's brother from the Utah Jazz, man. So
Okay.
and they're actually two different play styles, which is weird. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big height difference too.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's a taller guy too. He's a taller guy.
Yeah.
He can play guard and forward too. So I'm with you guys. 26. There's still a lot of talent at 26, but I think that Will Dawkins is going to be a little crafty in this draft. I think you could definitely see him move back into the lottery and potentially come out of this draft with 2 high-end prospects in the lottery, which I think would be a big win for the Wizards, man. Because if you could grab a guard and maybe a center, outside of Klingon, you're looking at Ware, you're looking at Zach Edey at Purdue. There's a lot of options at center because the center position, while we're all right right now, next year is really we need a center. You look at Marvin Bagley third, expiring deal. Yeah. Rashawn Holmes, he's got a player option, so we'll see if he enacts that. Tristan Vucevic, offensively very, very polished, but defensively, he was all right. He was a rim protector, but lateral movement on defense he needs to work on, man, because people are taking advantage of that and really blowing past him in the paint, man. So I agree with you guys, man. A lot of options. So let's get into the big subject, man, in Wizards land, man. Kyle Kuzma on the block. Looking at Kuz, obviously looking at this contract, man, very team friendly, not only for the Wizards board, for a potential suitor who wants to trade for him. 20+ point night scoring, in this league. He's been a really good leader in the locker room in DC, and he is very popular with his fan base. Well, half the fan base, that is, because the other half trying to trade him. So, looking at Kyle Kuzma and the fact that he's got a team-friendly contract, and the fact that even if we pick up a guy who can play power forward, he's not going to start right away. So, do you necessarily see the need to trade him right now? Or if you see the right deal, do you still make that deal? I'm going to start with Matt.
I don't think you need to. I think that's sort of the beauty of where he's at. He provides enough on-court and off-court value. I'm a firm believer in you need at least one sort of high-usage veteran to kind of take some of the weight off these young guys' shoulders. I don't think you want a situation where, like, I know the Denny stands will say something about, like, I'm hating, but, like, I don't think you want Denny to have to be 30% volume the entire season. It's nice to have kind of that safety valve to be able to offload some of the usage to, but you also don't have to hurry to do this. And if you get a great deal, you're also not really hurting your objectives for this year either by doing it. So there's no rush. There's no pressure. If you get a great deal, you move on from him and you send him on his way and you try to send him to a spot where, he'll be happy, because I think that's good for you guys in terms of kind of rehabbing your image around the league. And, if you can get like something that kind of helps you steady the ship enough now with some long-term value out of it too, like a future pick, awesome. I also just I'm less inclined to want to rush to get rid of him too, because I think teams are going to try to offload picks in this draft on you. And I'd just rather have a pick anywhere in next year's draft ahead of where they'd likely get a pick in this draft too. And I think his value is going to be a first-round pick. I don't think teams are going to filter it that much from this year to next year. So if you could get 20 next year, is that better than 13 this year? I would strongly look at that if I were, the front office.
No, great points. Great points. What do you think of Domo?
Yeah, I would have said before the Gafford trade for 26 that you had to do it. But I think that gives you some leverage as far as the assets you're able to work with and talent you're able to bring in. But I would just weigh all the opportunities you have. Like I mentioned it a while ago, but there's a few teams sitting in this top 10 in lottery area that aren't trying to be here next year. Like they're trying to be in the playoffs. They're trying to contend. Memphis, Houston, Chicago, right? There's a OKC. There's a few teams sitting there that the Kings, which has been thrown around a lot with Kuzma. That's a Cali destination. See what they want. See what they're willing to offer. And if it's something that you can use, or it's a player that you love that might be there, I say do it. But if they're just giving you some, if they're throwing back a bad contract like a Grant Williams, and some picks that are like heavily protected, or projected to be super low, then you don't have to do it, because you have them under contract for another 3 years and it's a descending deal. So there's no, and like I said, you have the additional pick this year. So there's no rush. It's not like he's 32, 33. He's still 20. He's going to be 29 this upcoming season. So there's no real rush. In spite of I think what someone on Twitter will want you to believe, but I think they're in a good spot to make the best deal possible.
It's leverage, man. Like they finally have leverage for a change. Like you can negotiate from a position of strength. And when was the last time the Wizards have been able to do that? So take advantage of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm with you guys. Kuzma, it's been fun watching him go from a role player with the Lakers to being a complete player in DC where, he can score 20 plus a night. He's been a really consistent scorer for the Wizards. Like I said, he's been catamount in the locker room as far as leadership. We look, obviously there's other leaders. Anthony Gill to me is like really under the radar leader with his team, man. Really good leader. But Kuzma's done well with working with these young guys. So I'm with you guys. I think that with his contract being very team friendly, you don't necessarily need to move him. You could have a guy, even if you draft for a replacement, let him sit on the second unit. You don't necessarily need to move Kuz because, again, his contract ain't breaking any kind of cap issues, And so I'm with you guys. But again, if you find a deal that is really, really good deals, because Domo mentioned it, Memphis, that's an intriguing move, man, because they're looking for a guy that can help Ja. They're looking to make the playoffs. They're not trying to rebuild, especially with Ja, look, he wants to win. So, that could be definitely a good destination and a good pickup to get back into the lottery for the Wizards. Miami at 15, he's been linked. Also, Jordan Poole been linked over there. And that could be a chance to get Eddie at 15. So we have you both mentioned it. We have a lot of room for improvement, man, but we have a lot more leeway now. We have leverage. It's a good situation now. It's not like a year ago or a year plus ago when we had Bradley Beal and Supermax and we were bogged down by contracts. Now, yeah, we have guys on long-term contracts, but they're movable. Kyle Kuzma is a very movable contract, but so I think it's a really. I don't envy Real Doggers, man, because that's a hard decision, man, because I do like Kuz. I think he's good for this organization. But then I think, to a certain degree, eventually you do move on. Just you got to get the maximum value from him. And I think that's the biggest thing. You have to get max value for him because you cannot let him walk away for nothing. And I think that's a big reason they brought him back because, people look at the certain moves like Bradley Beal, which we waited too long to move him. And the return was it was abysmal. And, if you look at the KP trade, a lot of people are down on that. I'm not so down because, Tyus Jones was not a bad point guard. I mean, he filled the role of the floor general. He came in, he did his job. And I said the same thing about Monte Morris. Not a point guard is going to wow you. He's not going to dunk on folk like John Morant, but he's going to be a guy who's going to come in, do his job, look to distribute first, definitely attack the basket, collapse it, and look to, utilize shooters on the outside. So we have a lot of capabilities in the draft going up, man. So
can I throw one more thing in on that real quick, Brandon? I just thought of as you guys were talking through it. I think this is another situation where I would talk to Kuzma about it.
Yeah.
The same way they talked to him before the Mavericks trade. I would find out like what he's looking for moving forward because I do think we got to a situation last year where there was a little bit of there's a lack of cohesion with guys offensively. So if you can say, hey, Kuzma, we really want you to get back into playmaking facilitation Kuzma instead of ISO first option Kuzma, I think I'd be a little more inclined to not rush that. If he's like, hey, I want to get shots up, then maybe that's, hey, our objectives kind of aren't as aligned here too. So they had an honest convo with him. It sounded like at last year's trade deadline, I do the same thing this offseason. And if he's kind of on the same page with, now I've got to kind of switch back into maybe I'm more of a decoy or I'm creating to kind of get other guys shots as well too. I think maybe that kind of disincentivizes you to make the trade as quickly, I would say.
Oh, no, that's a great point, man. And, I asked Kuz, man, and I said, look, you won a championship with the Lakers. You're a leader in DC. What's the next step for you personally as far as a player? And he said, look, get other people involved, make other people better, which was my stipulation. Obviously, we all know that efficiency was an issue with Kuz, man, but he was a constant source of points. Efficiency was an issue. He wasn't the only one. We got Jordan Poole was another guy, and there's other people in the contract or on the roster that efficiency was definitely an issue. But, that was my biggest issue was, if he stays, I definitely want to see him, utilize his body. I mean, he knows how to attack the paint. He knows how to use his body to put himself in the best position to score. Sometimes he can be a little too reliant on that jump shot, but overall, he uses his body well. And so, if he can get everybody else involved, and because look, the name of the game is development. We have to develop these young guys, and for him to stay, I definitely want to see him get other people more involved, and that goes for Jordan Poole too. So before we roll, man, I want to get your comments on Jordan Poole. Do you think that he's the point guard of the future, or you think we're just keeping him warm to eventually trade him? What do you think, Domo?
Man, I'm gonna say TBD on that. To be determined, man.
Yeah.
He's got an opportunity to show that he is. I was calling for at the beginning of the year last year, and I just thought they kind of wasted a lot of games with his development and growing in that position. But that's dead now. Like, you got a summer in front of you, you got a season in front of you, where you have an opportunity to show everybody that, hey, you can run the ship. You can make good decisions under duress. You can play a little bit of defense. You can keep the turnovers down. You can be more efficient, smarter with your basketball decisions. So I'm rooting for the kid, man. He was one of the guys that was on my list of players to go after. Should we move on from Bradley Beal? It was him, Maxey, and then Tyler Hero. And at one point, Jordan Poole was at the top of the list amongst consensus. Before Maxey took off, Jordan Poole was the hottest young guard name that was out there that you maybe could see. All right, if the Warriors ever decided they want to move on, maybe you go get him and make him your guy. So the fact that he's here now, I think we just got to give it a little bit of time. Let's see him with a pick and roll big, athletic. Maybe his name rhymes with Carr. I don't know, rolling to the rim. Let's see what he does with the ball in his hand as the lead guy from the start of the season.
I agree with you. Matt, is the point guard the future on the roster? What you thinking?
It's tough, man. Like, I agree with everything Domo just said, and Brandon, the way you guys have talked about him on the show for the last year. I think we're all kind of like on the same page about, once they gave him something he seemed a little more comfortable with, that's great. To be honest with you, though, I would almost lean the other way in terms of, there are plenty of times in the NBA where you're not going to use you in your ideal role, and you can't go from good to a total zero. So actually, I think for him, I would still be trying to get him reps in the role they used him in to start the year last year too, just to see if that is an area where he can improve, because you may draft another really young, dynamic guard, and he's going to have to be able to survive off ball. Like, his game can't totally crater. So, I think, can he be a really good piece for them as an on-ball creator for the next couple of years? Like, absolutely. I don't see any reason why, he can't get kind of more into a groove if he gets a full season of that under his belt here. But it's to find out if he really fits long-term. I think this front office really values versatility. And if you can only play in this one very specific context, in this one specific role to be valuable, I don't know that that's going to be appealing to them for, kind of a long-term piece. So for him, it's okay. I can excel in this one role, but I can also survive a little bit, or at least 10 minutes a game, as the secondary guy too. I think that really probably determines if he's here longer term or not. Just that flexibility that would give them to build out the roster.
Man, great point. Great points, man. And I agree with both of you. I'm big on Jordan Poole. I was very intrigued because of the talent going at Golden State. Sure. And he's shown that he could be that scorer, man. He could definitely score in this league. He's not even close to his prime yet. And he's shown that he could be that guy in the league. And I definitely think he has all-star potential. The biggest thing was him is obviously his struggles in the first half, was the mental side, which a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to sports, where usually when your mind goes, your body follows. The mental side is key. If you look at Denny, Denny's a perfect player when it comes to confidence. When his confidence is high, you see that potential with Denny. When it's low, it's a totally different player. So I agree with you guys that I think that he could be the answer long term, but not necessarily as a starting point guard. Or he could start as a starting point guard and maybe they revert to a 6-man role if they add more talent at point guard. So I definitely agree on that, man. So hey, man, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it there. But I definitely appreciate you guys coming on today, man. Like I said, Domo, man, representing Wizards of Gallery Place, good content, man. I'll listen to you all the time, man. So definitely, I've been trying to chop it up with you for a long time, man. So I definitely, I'm glad you came on the show today, man. And Matt, man, you've been on it before, but glad to have you back, man. Doing good work over there at Bullets Forever, man. And obviously, man, the podcast is rocking, man. You and Jahadi are doing your thing, man. So like I said, both of these gentlemen, man, I'm telling you, definitely check them out, y'all, if you don't already check them out. So again, appreciate you guys, man. So before we roll, you guys want to plug anything else?
No, Brandon, thanks for your service, man. Doing this after Memorial Day. So thanks for everything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So definitely, again, check out their content because I'm a big fan of it. So you guys should definitely be too. So Let's see. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts Locked On, plus the national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So again, check me out tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about Matas Buzelis, man. Is he maybe an undercover gem in this draft? So definitely check me out tomorrow night. And again, appreciate you gentlemen tonight. And we're going to go ahead and call it. Hail to the Wizards and peace. See you guys next time.